We have gathered here today to discuss the book Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and for you to watch me suffer with the most difficult puzzle on all of Amphorius and probably in the entirety of Honkai Star Rail. And there is even a chance that I will not be able to finish it by the end of this video. And the reason why this book is so awesome, first of all, is that you can read it in two ways. You can read it completely for the plot, brainlessly, not thinking too much about it, and you're gonna give it 5 stars. It's a beautiful gothic novel with a lot of atmosphere behind it, with a certain decent amount of twists, and it is really enjoyable. Like, you can devour this in such a short time you would not believe. Even though it is a book written almost 100 years ago, math is not my strong suit, so sorry if I lied to you a little bit. It was written in the 30s, but I'm not sure which year precisely. In any case, it's a really great book, even if you're just gonna read it to relax, even if you're coming from a thriller background, or even if you just like dark romance. It's not exactly what you would expect, and that's what's so great about it. You will also give it 5 stars if you're actually deep reading it. The thing that she does in a really awesome way is that the story, on its own, is one thing, but the way you perceive the story can have an incredible impact in how you perceive this book. This is very much like the books of Jane Austen, which are often considered to be romance books. In any case, with Rebecca, I do think some things are more obvious, some things are more subtle, and I am truly grateful to myself, who was reading My Dark Vanessa, which is a book about... It's a modern Lolita, let's put it like that. It's the kind of Lolita that you need to read before the actual Lolita, because Lolita is also the kind of book where you need to not be tricked by the narrator. When I read that for the first time, I was so tricked. I was absolutely tricked. I did not understand that book the way it was intended. Back to Rebecca. The reason why it's so awesome, like I said, is because you can read it both ways. Now let's start with something that's kind of spoilerless before I actually dive into some depth here. First of all, the novel is named Rebecca by the deceased ex-wife of our main dark character, Maximilian de Winter, who marries our main character, who is not named in the book. Now this is super important. And she has one character trait that is most prominent, and that is that she is so painfully insecure. And in that way, she is also super similar to Vanessa from My Dark Vanessa. And that is one thing that I perhaps would not have paid attention to if I had not been reading them back to back. Another thing about her is that she cares a lot about what other people think. She says that even explicitly, more so what they think is happening in their marriage than what actually is happening in their marriage. She's super bad at communicating her thoughts, her negative emotions, the things that bother her. She's shrinking constantly. She fears the reactions of her husband, who is emotionally, 15, even though he is 20 years her senior, around 20 years. And that's why you can forgive her, but not him, because goddammit, you're 40 something. You should know better, but he doesn't. He's a man. In any case, he is the shadow daddy in question here. So if they were a little bit more toxic in their communication and relationship, this would have been Wuthering Heights, and I would have called it a day. The reason for this title is that du Maurier wrote Maxime in such a way that she brings you back to reality out of your Delulu phase for liking morally gray, quiet, tester, cold characters, villains with an origin story, and so on. So once you start like recognizing yourself in the main character, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm getting called out here. But the reason is, of course, that she never moralizes about it. You just sit there and you read it and you're like, I should be happy that she's being such a ride or die, but she's doing it not out of love, but out of very different emotions that she kind of tries to cover up in this cocoon of love, right? And it's so great because you're like, okay, this is what I would love to happen in any fantasy, but now suddenly I don't want that anymore. And then you start to wonder, okay, why, right? Before I go back to this morally gray badness, right? She doesn't have a name, and she is constantly in the shadow of Rebecca, the deceased wife of her current husband. And this is the conflict of the femme fatale that was Rebecca and the typical like femme fragile that is now our main character. And like this Rebecca was like this ideal that's always better than her, smarter than her, prettier than her, right? That did this and this in a certain way, and she's not changing anything. It's like Cinderella Part 2 when Cinderella goes to the castle and they're like, oh my goodness, you can't put a marquise sitting in front of the baron. That's not how you do things. We are not allowed to feel any compassion for the new Mrs. De Winter. And we're also not put in a position where we can just approve of her putting her face in a Maxime after he reveals his super dark secret, which is not that difficult to guess. So you're gonna want to skip this part if you don't want to get spoiled, because I'm gonna start spoiling it right now. She's not really a ride or die because she just hears that he killed Rebecca, because now he's saying like, oh, she was a horrible person. She's like, oh my god, Rebecca is not like this glorious, perfect woman that I was fearing. And now she says, oh my god, he never loved her, so he loves me. She's just thinking about this fact that he now loves her, that she's not really assessing the reality that he killed her. And later on in the novel, you also see that he just never says that, oh, I did the wrong thing, and I would have done it again, and so on and so on. But he never really provides enough motivation for a pure murder, because, honey, there's divorce. And for someone who simply claims to not be so interested in, like, you know, other people and so on, and wants to live his life and so on, that seems like you care a lot about what people think. In any case, so she hears this and she's just standing by him, not questioning anything. She wants to believe her own fantasies about this, and suddenly, you know, she feels all better. Some other things about Maximilian that are just not it is, for example, when she says, oh, well, treat me like, you know, your partner, your wife, not like a child, because he does kind of exhibit a bit of pedo behavior when he's like saying, you look like you know something you're not supposed to know, or you're like, oh my god, you lost your childish innocence now that you know this, and so on and so on. He's like guilt tripping her the whole time, saying like, oh, I'm so evil for like proposing to you in such a, you know, basic way and whatever. And his first reaction to her asking to be treated equally is like, what, do you want me to like beat you? When she said like, oh, treat me like other husbands treat their wives normally. So that's your first reaction. Oh, very interesting. Hey, that's your first thought about equality. So that's the kind of man we're talking about here. that's the kind of people shadow daddies are, actually, when you think about it. This is morally gray. In reality, this is the ugly reality of a shadow daddy. Continuing further, the first time that he says that he actually loves her because she was convincing herself, gaslighting herself the whole time. Like, he loves me, he just didn't have the right opportunity to say that to me before. And the first time he said that is when he, like, put his secret out, that he is a murderer, actually. And she's so happy to hear that, and I'm like, okay, so now you can be delusional, right? You can say like, oh, now he fully trusts her, so now he can let emotions loose. No, he just wants to keep her there to prevent a scandal, because he realized he cannot hide this from her anymore, and he could profit from the situation. In the end, he gets pretty much saved by the doctor whom Rebecca went to see before she died, and we are led to assume that she went to see him because she was pregnant, because she was cheating the whole time, and he knew that. The doctor actually said no, she had cancer, so she would have like been on morphine and like dying within a couple of weeks. And now you're supposed to, you would normally, right, be happy because of this Deus Ex Machina kind of solution where he's free. And this, if this were a novel by Alexandre Dumas, so if this was like the Three Musketeers of something, you would be like, oh my god, awesome, now he's free, everybody can be happy. But no, actually, when you hear that, you're like, oh goodness, so he killed her for nothing. And then you're not saying like, okay, she should have died, so, you know, he could have spared his conscience. Oh, it's such a shame, right? But what you actually see is that he did it because he wanted to. You see how this murder was so pointless. You see it in all of its ugliness. This is not Damon and Elena, where Damon kills her brother and then Elena is like, never mind, I love you. No, that just doesn't happen, come on. Were we all just lobotomized? The author, Daphne du Maurier, has laid bare the gothic romance. As the story begins, she's talking about how they're in this hotel and their life is so peaceful. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, okay, some people are just naturally more boring than I am. And I took it for granted, but after I realized she has been gaslighting herself the whole time. It was just not so obvious. Maybe she even invented this doctor situation. Maybe she just became so delirious because she suddenly, after hearing that he killed Rebecca, she started exhibiting like changes in behavior, which could simply mean that she just completely Rebecca-fied herself. But insecure people don't change overnight, because their insecurity does not stem from actual facts. It's about their perception of the self. And so she's basically haunted by this shadow of this perfect woman. Even though she was evil, maybe she wasn't even evil, maybe Maxim just lied to make it seem like that. But what else could you expect from a woman that her first reaction to being like asked to marry him is like, I will be Mrs. De Winter, Menderley will be mine. That's a bit superficial. Those are my thoughts about Rebecca. It is a super interesting book to dig into. You can also find lesbian elements in it. It's super atmospheric. I would just recommend it to everyone. So, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that by now I finished doing this puzzle, because this is me from the past. See you next time.